I'm proud to join the new graduates on this special day. We have run a race and we have been judged the champions. I sometimes feel like an old draft horse myself, but today we've come down the straight, and although the odds were sometimes against us, we've emerged victorious. On this famous ground, decked out in our gaudy colours, we now have a few moments together to reflect on what this all means for us, for our loved ones, and for the wider world. I'm grateful to Victoria University for making me a Doctor of the University, the Doctor of Laws. At the very beginning of the teaching of law in this university, I was invited by Professor Roman Tomasic to take part in the opening of a moot court for the training of the advocates of the future, and many of them have later appeared before me in the courts. Over the years, I've been coming back to the wonderful facility that's now been opened in the heart of the legal precinct of Melbourne, most recently for a moot, as the Vice-Chancellor has said, just 10 days ago. The university has extended many generous gifts to me, but no gift is greater than that of an honorary doctorate in the company of new graduates standing at the brink of their lives with its challenges, uncertainties, and boundless opportunities. Today, I honour the graduates in law, business services and management. All of these disciplines are linked by the law. A degree in law is at the heart of legal practice, of course. But business and management could not exist in a society without the law. The corporation is an invention of law. Business could not take place without law underpinning and enforcing promises and contracts. So we're all together in this as individuals and citizens, and law is necessary. But is it always sufficient? How do we make sure that law is up to date and in tune with our times, for corporations, for businesses, for managers, and for ordinary citizens? Now, it's the province of the old to give advice to the young, most of which the old have ignored throughout their lives. But today, I want to share with you just 3 simple messages that resonate with my own life. They are, I believe, apt to this occasion. They distill my contribution to the really important things that we of the graduating class should hold steadily in our minds at this precious moment. The first is the importance of giving voice to gratitude. There's something rather peculiar about the Anglo-Celtic people, that they often find it hard to express love for those that really matter to them. None of us at all would be here today except for some very special people. Mostly this means our parents, perhaps a grandmother, perhaps a wonderful teacher, perhaps the discipline of a marvellous school, perhaps the encouragement of our siblings, possibly the quiet reassurance from a spouse, partner, or true friend. Today, we must tell those who made all this possible that we love them and that we honour them and that we're grateful to them and that none of this could have happened on our own. As I've become older, I've learned to be more forthright in thanking those who gave me the chances and who nurtured me in good instruction, wise discipline and provocative ideas. Go and do likewise. Fine university teachers are unsung heroes of this day. In my case, in the 1950s in Sydney, I had many of them. One of them, who is in my heart today, was Julia Stone, successively Professor of Law at the universities of Auckland, Sydney and the University of New South Wales. A recent book on Professor Stone's life by Professor Helen Irving and others is titled Julius Stone, A Study in Influence. It was Julius Stone who provided the cure to the then orthodox instruction of Chief Justice Sir Owen Dixon that strict legalism was the only legitimate path for lawyers. Stone taught that things were more complicated than that as lawyers and as human beings we had inescapable choices to make. If you want to understand the creative period of justice in our country, evident in the High Court under Chief Justice Mason, it derived from the fact that an increasing number of justices had been the pupils of Julius Stone. Mason, Jacobs, Murphy, Dean, Gaudron, Gummow, Gleeson and me. In years to come, I do not doubt that the influence of the fine teachers and scholars at Victoria University will likewise leave their stamp on the law, an imprint for good in our Australian search for justice and due order in society. So we should thank our teachers and celebrate them on this day. My second admonition is equally simple. If I look back on my first graduation day in Sydney in arts in 1959, what a difference I see in the Australia of then and the Australia of today. We have made progress, my fellow citizens, not enough, but progress undoubtedly. Back in 1959, Australians denied land rights and other rights to Aboriginals until a referendum in 1967 and the great Mabo decision of the Mason Court in 1992 and the Wick case of 1996 in which I took part and an apology in 2008 started to change things. White Australia was still firmly in place in my country until 1966. We had prejudice and fear about people who were a bit different in appearance, in skin colour, in their religion and in outlook. We had laws against them. Harder to change, we had attitudes and fears. We had issues. Women in those days were very few in the law schools. As Mary Gaudron found, the barriers in the law were extremely hard to break. The ceilings were not of glass, but of steel. The laws were often unequal. The barriers in business and management were also very high. Women in senior management and on company boards have increased, but it's still a very slow journey. And as for gays, we were taught in first year criminal law about their second class and criminal status. Those laws did not begin to disappear until Don Dunstan's government in South Australia in 1974 began the process of change. Sometimes there is a need for radical law reform, and that was such a topic. We all know all too well that there are still many unequal laws that afflict those and other groups and impede justice and due order in Australia, the land that always boasts of the fair go. Laws that without the slightest consultation lifted the International Races Convention and the Racial Discrimination Act to permit an intervention of federal police and military in the Northern Territory of Australia on the ground of the race of the people at whom those laws were targeted. Laws and practices that entrench prejudice against refugees and seek to divert them from our borders, apparently, allegedly, in our national interest. although by international law our country has promised asylum in this country to those who seek it here. Women still face barriers, and in so many areas of life, even more so in business than in the legal profession. Gays and other minorities still face serious inequality and ignorant prejudice, at least 60 years after science removed any excuse for such legal and social discrimination. The recurring puzzle, however, upon which I want to charge my fellow graduates today is this: why, at my graduation back in 1959, did few, if any, of the graduating class see any injustice whatsoever in our then treatment of Indigenous people, or of Asian immigrants, or of women, or of gays, or of prisoners, or just about anyone else in a minority? Today, you and I must be much more critical, questioning and insightful. We must look into the essence of things, and we must see the injustices and inefficiencies of today's world. We shouldn't wait for decades to begin to cure them. And this brings me to my third and final injunction. How can these bright ideas be translated into action by the new graduating class? The process must start here today. The saying of thanks is not all that difficult. Expressions of love on a day like today are perfectly permissible. Even men are permitted to embrace their fathers, something I never did from baby years until my 60s. My father is still getting used to it. So let your hair down and give thanks and praise where it's due for those who share this great university occasion with you today. And use the L word. But how can we expect lawyers and business managers, most of whom tend to be fairly conservative and orthodox in their thinking and actions, to see the new injustices to which Australia is presently blind? It's simple, actually. It can be done quite easily. In my life, from my university days and immediately afterwards, I was always a joiner. I joined student politics. I joined the Council for Civil Liberties. I joined community groups. I did pro bono cases. I acted without fee for countless good causes. All in all, I became something of a legal nuisance. I worked tirelessly in my professional duties, but I was always willing to go the extra mile. I was never a formalist. I resisted self-satisfaction, and all this got me noticed. That wasn't the specific objective of the time, but it was definitely a consequence. And I would not be standing here today in these bright robes if I had not been a joiner and a stirrer and a shaker. So that is my final advice: to work hard and faithfully for your clients and businesses, to go the extra mile with pro bono work. Some of the greatest cases for liberty that came before the High Court of Australia in my time, and more recently, have been brought by lawyers acting free of charge, for the good of the cause, for the good of the public, for the good of fellow citizens and fellow human beings, even for the good of animals. Take my advice. It's worthwhile, it's fun, and it makes our society a place where law and business truly matter. Doing this is also the best way we can repay our debt to our families and our teachers, because the central lesson that they sought to teach us was that law and business and rules are important, but they're not enough. The essential value of these disciplines derives from their commitment to a good society and to justice and equality for everyone. In 50 years' time, when you look back on your life in the law or in business or in public service or in the academy, made possible by the degree that you have received today, may you have given back by becoming a joiner, by using law and business enterprise to make our country and the world a better place. And strangely, the best advice for this day was not given by a judge, it was not given by a lawyer, wasn't even given by a bishop or a teacher. It was given by a great businessman and entrepreneur who looked into the essence of things. I refer, of course, to Steve Jobs, the late founder of Apple, and the muse who changed our world. So let him have the last words on this, our graduation day. He told a graduating class at Stanford University that his diagnosis with cancer had reinforced in him a social philosophy that he'd embraced from the age of 17. And this is what he told the Stanford graduates. Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. Don't let the noise of others' opinions drown out your own inner voice. And most important, have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. Good advice, I think you'll agree. Good advice for lawyers as well as managers. Wise advice. In fact, the advice that this university gives you on this special day. Be bold. Trust your hunches. Don't be conventional. Don't be boring. Make a difference. Be a stirrer. Be a joiner. Be a change agent. And join others to make this world and our country a better place.